She'd passed out cold from pure exhaustion right there in the hospital, only to be scooped up by a billionaire who would nurse her back to health. Joyce Nelson's hands trembled uncontrollably. She had been running around for a grueling 14 hours straight, with 2 more still left on the clock. Overhead, the fluorescent lights of Charleston Medical Center's ICU hummed a relentless glaring tune, causing her head to throb with each step she took. At 33, she felt ancient. A voice cut in. "Joyce, could you go see Mr. Patterson in 412? It was Sarah, the head nurse, who spoke without even glancing away from her screen. "His vitals are looking a little off." "Got it," Joyce replied, grabbing the med cart and leaning on it for a brief second to find her balance. The room swam for a moment before snapping back into focus. She hadn't eaten breakfast or lunch. Did she even have dinner the night before? The memory was a blank. Room 412, vitals check, IV at adjustment, put on a smile for the family. It was a struggle when her face felt like it was carved from stone. Then it was on to this next patient and the one after that. Just keep moving. Never stop. Her dad was counting on her. On most days, that was the only thing holding her up. She pictured her dad sitting alone in that assisted living home on James Island, probably wondering why it had been 3 days since her last visit. Her father, a man who'd busted his hump, working 2 jobs just so she and her brother could have it all, was now just a shadow of his former self, ravaged by heart disease and diabetes. And that facility, it cost $2,000 every month, an amount her nurse's salary could hardly stretch to cover. It was a struggle, even pulling double shifts, picking up extra work on weekends, and turning down anything that wasn't absolutely essential for survival. "Joyce," Sarah's voice sliced through her mental haze. "Are you all right? You look white as a sheet." "I'm okay, just wiped out." "You're always wiped out. When did you last take a day for yourself?" Joyce honestly had no idea. "I'm fine," she insisted, again pushing forward. Inside Mr. Patterson's room, she checked his monitors and saw his oxygen saturation was dropping. She tweaked the oxygen flow, jotted down notes on his chart, and reassured his anxious daughter that things were under control. She smiled, a constant smile. That was the job of a nurse, wasn't it? To be the calm in the storm, even when you're crumbling inside. As she stepped out of the room, the corridor seemed to stretch into an impossibly long, blindingly bright tunnel. Darkness began to creep in at the edges of her sight. "Oh no, not now. Please not right now," she thought. But her body wasn't listening. It had been fueled by nothing but determination for months, and it had finally hit its limit. Joyce's knees buckled. The fall itself was a complete blank. One second she was on her feet, the next she was on the ground. She could feel the cold linoleum on her cheek and hear shouts all around her, but they sounded far away, as if she were submerged in water. "Joyce, somebody grab a gurney. Get Dr. Martinez," someone yelled. "Joyce, can you hear me?" She tried to respond to let them know she was okay. All she needed was a moment to rest. She still had 2 hours left in her shift, but the blackness was beckoning a soft but persistent pull, and she was just so exhausted from the constant struggle. "Let go," it whispered. "Just for a second, give in," it said. And so she did. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Tales That Touch the Channel, where we share heartwarming and emotional love stories. Because let's be honest, love and loss are 2 things none of us can avoid. You never know when, how, or where they'll find you. There's no right or wrong time. If this is your first time here, do us a favor and subscribe and ring that notification bell so you're always up to date. And for all of our loyal subscribers coming back for more, we can't thank you enough. You guys mean the world to us. All right, you'll want to stick around for the rest of this one. Drop a comment below with what you're thinking, and don't forget to hit that like button. Now let's get back to the story. Donald Eley had no business being at Charleston Medical Center on that particular Tuesday afternoon. He should have been at his desk at Eley Medical Technologies, poring over the quarterly reports his CFO had been bugging him about for the last week. He should have been doing absolutely anything else besides strolling through a hospital where the smell of antiseptic and the sound of beeping machines dredged up memories he'd spent 4 years desperately trying to forget. But then his assistant had phoned him that morning. "Mr. Eley, doctor, Richard Martinez from Charleston Medical is on the line. He'd like to talk about the new diagnostic imaging equipment and was hoping you could meet him there this afternoon." Donald came very close to saying no to just passing it off to his VP of sales. But Martinez was a big deal, and landing this contract meant Eley Medical Technologies could get into every major hospital in the Southeast. And that's how he found himself here, a 36-year-old man with a net worth of $300 million, wandering through a hospital trying to push away the memory of his last visit 4 years prior, when he watched his wife slowly slip away. He forced the memory down and glanced at his watch. Martinez was late. What a shock. Doctors were never on time. Donald positioned himself near the nurse's station on the fourth floor, keeping his distance so he wasn't in the way, but staying close enough for Martinez to spot him when he finally arrived. It was then that he heard a disturbance down the hall. "Joyce, somebody grab a gurney." Donald's head snapped up. About 30 feet away, a young woman dressed in scrubs had collapsed. Other nurses were scrambling to her side, a small crowd gathering around them. They moved with a practiced urgency that couldn't quite hide the panic underneath. He told himself to stay back. This had nothing to do with him. The medical staff had it under control. But then he got a look at her face. She was a beautiful black woman, and even in unconsciousness, you could see the profound exhaustion etched into her very being. Her scrubs seemed to swallow her small frame, a clear sign she had recently lost weight. Deep, dark circles were visible beneath her closed eyelids. There was something about her fall. It wasn't abrupt or dramatic, but more of a silent, gentle crumpling, like a marionette whose strings had been severed, that made Donald's heart ache. He was intimately familiar with that level of weariness. He'd stared at it in his own reflection every morning for the last 4 years. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to move back." A nurse with a name tag that read Sarah was trying to control the onlookers. "Please, we need some room here." Donald took a step back, but he didn't turn away. He observed as they carefully placed the unconscious woman onto a gurney, while another nurse called out for vitals and the controlled mayhem of a medical emergency played out. "Who is that?" Donald directed his question to Sarah. "That's one of our own, Joyce Nelson. She's—" Sarah caught herself, her professional training kicking in. "She's going to be okay, sir. You really ought to go to the waiting area." Joyce Nelson. Donald committed the name to memory as he retreated against the wall. The gurney was wheeled by, and for a moment he saw her face again, serene and finally peaceful. Looking at her, he guessed it was the first proper rest she'd had in weeks. A strange feeling knotted in Donald's gut. Maybe it was a sense of familiarity or a resurfacing memory, or maybe just that basic human instinct you feel when you see someone who's been driven beyond their breaking point. 15 minutes later, Dr. Martinez showed up at Donald's side, full of apologies and clearly in a hurry. "Mr. Eley, my apologies for the delay. We just had a situation with one of our nurses." "Joyce Nelson." Martinez looked surprised. "You know her?" "No, but I was standing right here when she went down." Their conversation turned to diagnostic imaging machines, purchase orders, and installation schedules. But Donald found his thoughts wandering. Joyce Nelson, a nurse who had literally worked until she dropped. He couldn't help but wonder what kind of life could push a person that far. The meeting was over, and Donald's day should have followed its usual script back to the office. The spreadsheets, the meticulously ordered world he'd engineered to keep chaos and pain at bay. But he didn't. Instead, he found his feet carrying him to the nurse's station, the words leaving his mouth before he could stop them. "Joyce Nelson, is she all right?" The nurse Sarah glanced up, her expression, a mix of surprise and professional calm. "She's stable for now." It was severe exhaustion, dehydration, and her blood sugar had plummeted. "Dr. Martinez is admitting her overnight just to be safe." "Is there any family we should notify, someone to call?" Her emergency contact lists her father, but he's— Sarah stopped short, realizing her mistake. "I'm sorry, sir, I can't disclose any more patient details." "Of course," Donald replied, his voice even. He reached into his jacket, pulling a business card from his wallet. "When she's awake, would you mind passing this along to her? Just let her know that if there's anything she needs, absolutely anything, she can reach me at this number." Sarah accepted the card, her eyes narrowing slightly, a question hanging in the air. "But you're a stranger to her." "I am," Donald conceded, "but I recognize someone who's driven themselves past their breaking point. And I also know the feeling of wishing just one person had offered a hand when everything fell apart." He turned and walked away without waiting for her reply, not giving himself a chance to second-guess the impulse, and escaping before the sterile scent of the hospital could conjure the ghosts of his wife's last moments. The drive back to the office was on autopilot, his mind replaying the scene of Joyce Nelson crumpled on the sterile linoleum floor. He couldn't shake the nagging sense that his presence there hadn't been an accident. He had abandoned any belief in fate 4 years prior, the day cancer had claimed his wife. Still, a small part of him wondered if he'd been mistaken. Joyce's first conscious thought was the irony of waking up in a hospital bed when she'd spent her day working in one. Her second was that something wasn't right. The room was private. There was no way she could afford this. A surge of panic tightened her chest as she tried to get up, but a gentle hand on her shoulder eased her back down. Whoa, take it easy. You had us all pretty worried. The voice belonged to Dr. Elena Martinez, an attending she'd known for 3 years who was now standing over her bed. Elena wore that familiar expression, a blend of kindness and sternness, usually reserved for patients who had neglected their own well-being. How long have I been asleep? Joyce managed to ask, her voice a dry whisper. Her throat felt like sandpaper. About 6 hours. It's 8 p.m. now. We have you hooked up to an IV for fluids and glucose, Elena explained. Joyce, when did you last have a real meal? I think I had some coffee yesterday morning for breakfast. Coffee doesn't count as breakfast. Before that, I'm not sure. Maybe 2 or 3 days ago. The muscle in Elena's jaw clenched. Joyce, you're a nurse, for heaven's sake. You know the risks. Your labs came back showing you're severely malnourished, dehydrated, and your stress hormones are off the charts. You are literally working yourself to death. I'm okay, I just need to. You passed out on the job. That is the opposite of okay, Joyce. That was your body's way of telling you it's giving up because you're starving it. A hot sting of tears welled up, and she was too exhausted to hold them back. I can't stop, she whispered. My dad relies on me. The bills for his care. I can't take a day off, let alone ease up. Elena's demeanor softened as she sat on the corner of the mattress. Your father would never want you to sacrifice your own health for his sake. You don't get it, Joyce shot back. My mother passed away because I failed to get her better care. I was only 28, fresh out of school and buried under student debt. The only place I could afford was a state-run home, and it was a nightmare. She deserves so much more, Elena. My dad deserves more. I refuse to let him down like I let her down. You did not fail your mother. Yes, I did, and it won't happen again. A heavy silence filled the room until Elena finally let out a long breath. We're keeping you here tonight to monitor you. Administration is forcing you to take a week of leave unpaid naturally. We will reevaluate things in the morning, but Joyce, something has to give. I'm talking about significant changes. Getting actual sleep, eating proper meals. You can't take care of anyone if you're not taking care of yourself. Once Elena was gone, Joyce was left alone in the dim room, her eyes fixed on the acoustic tiles above. Deep down, she knew every word Elena said was true. She was on a collision course with a complete breakdown. But what other option was there? Her dad depended on her. And that was the only thing that counted. A soft rap on the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Sarah who peeked inside and grinned upon seeing her awake. Hey there, how are you holding up? Mostly just mortified, Joyce admitted. Don't be silly. We've all seen you running on fumes for ages. Everyone's been concerned about you. Sarah stepped inside, something in her hand. Okay, so this is a little strange, but a man was here right after it happened. A Mr. Donald Eley. He said he's the owner of Eley Medical Technologies. He was asking after you, just wanting to know if you were all right. I've never heard of the Donald Eley. Well, it seems he's heard of you or wants to. He left this for you. Sarah passed a business card to Joyce. The cardstock was heavy and clearly expensive. It had gold-embossed letters, Donald C. Eley, Chief Executive Officer, Eley Medical Technologies, with a tagline about revolutionizing healthcare. Below that were a phone number and an email. On the reverse side, a message was scrawled in a bold masculine hand. It read, if there's anything you need, no matter what, please call. Pretty strange, isn't it? Sarah continued. Some wealthy guy just happens to be on the spot when you pass out, then asks about you and leaves his personal card. I mean, it has the potential to be weird, but honestly, he seemed truly worried. And it wasn't a predatory kind of worried either. It was more, I don't know, it felt like he somehow got what you've been dealing with. Joyce flipped the heavy card over and over in her fingers. Donald Eley, a CEO. Probably a billionaire owning a company like that. How could a man with that kind of life possibly relate to hers, and yet he was there? He had inquired about her. He had left behind a simple, direct offer of help. Her first instinct was to toss it. Men with that kind of money never offered assistance without expecting something in return. And she certainly wasn't looking for a handout, but she was just so exhausted. The idea that someone, a complete stranger, had cared enough to even ask about her welfare caused a painful crack in the armor around her heart. Joyce slipped the card into the pocket of her scrubs. The chances of her ever calling were slim, But perhaps she would hold on to it, a small token that someone out there had seen she was going under. At times, that was all you could ask for. Hours after the building had emptied, Donald remained in his office, his gaze fixed on the dark screen of his phone. It had been 8 hours since he'd left his card for Joyce Nelson. Of course, she was unconscious when he'd done it, so it was logical to assume she hadn't even laid eyes on it. And what if she had? What reason would she have to call him? They were from different universes. He was a titan of industry. She was a nurse just trying to keep her head above water. Their lives had no intersection. Yet he couldn't get her out of his head, the image of her falling, the profound weariness etched into her very being. He was haunted by the realization that she had pushed herself past consciousness, all in the name of helping other people. That level of commitment was something Donald understood intimately. His wife Anne had been a physician. She had adored her profession, cherished her patients, and poured her entire soul into her practice, right up to the moment that breast cancer took it all away. 4 years. 4 years had passed since Anne's death, yet Donald's hands still reflexively reached for his phone to share something with her. And some mornings he still woke with the phantom expectation of feeling her warm presence next to him in bed. Losing her had shattered him. He had loved her with everything he had, and in the aftermath, he'd built walls around his heart, vowing no one would ever get that close again. A grief that profound remakes a man, leaving him cautious and broken, which made his current situation utterly baffling. Here he was, anxious for a call from a complete stranger. He'd had his assistant run a quiet background check, strictly public record stuff, nothing that crossed a line. The file was simple: Joyce Nelson, 33 years old, an RN at Charleston Medical. Her mother had passed away 5 years ago, and her father was residing in an assisted living home. Her schedule was brutal, a constant rotation of double and even triple shifts. Digitally, she was a ghost, and from what they could gather, her entire existence revolved around the hospital, a life completely sacrificed for her father's well-being. That kind of devotion was something Donald understood intimately. He remembered liquidating assets, chasing any hope to save Anne, funding experimental trials, flying in specialists, anything for just one more day. Ultimately, none of it had made a difference. Cancer is an impartial monster. It doesn't bargain with wealth, love, or raw desperation. But the ordeal had left him with a hard-earned lesson. He learned that sometimes all you can offer is your presence, to stand with someone in their fight, to help without expectation. Logically, a woman like Joyce Nelson had no need for a billionaire meddling in her affairs. Yet he couldn't shake the image of her collapsing, the profound weariness in her eyes that spoke of a burden carried solo for far too long. What if he could lighten that load just a little? Even if his offer was never accepted, the act of trying, of reaching out, had to mean something. It had to. Joyce left the hospital the next morning with strict instructions: rest, eat, and stay off her feet for a week. The forced time off was unpaid, of course, which turned next month's already daunting bills into a mountain of debt. But her first priority was her father. She just needed to stop by her apartment first. Her place, a tiny studio just off Meeting Street, featured a kitchenette and a bathroom so small it was almost a closet. The $2,000 a month for rent was criminal, but that was just Charleston for you. The cost of living was astronomical. After a shower and a change of clothes, she stared into the bleak emptiness of her refrigerator. Inside sat half a container of peanut butter, some bread that was getting dangerously close to its expiration date, and a lone Diet Coke. Groceries were a luxury, and every spare cent went to her dad's facility. Joyce slapped together a peanut butter sandwich and called it dinner. Her phone vibrated. It was a text from her brother Robert, who lived in Atlanta and sent his monthly check-in to ease his conscience about not being more involved with their dad. "Heard you passed out at work. Everything all right, Joyce?" She replied with a lie. "I'm fine. Just exhausted." His response was instant. "You've got to take it easy, sis. Dad wouldn't want you running yourself into the ground for him." That was easy for him to say from his comfortable life with a wife, 2 children, and a mortgage. The $300 he sent when he could was appreciated, but it was just a drop in the ocean. She left him on red. What was the use in responding? Instead, her fingers found the crisp business card Donald Eley had given her, and she examined the elegant script in the note he'd penned on the back. "If you need anything, anything at all, call me." She considered looking him up online to see what he was all about, but what would be the point? In her world, rich men never offered help without expecting something. She had nothing to offer in return but weariness and desperation. The smart move would be to throw the card away. Instead, she slipped it into her wallet, placing it behind her nursing license for safekeeping, for what she wasn't sure. But the card had a tangible presence, a small, solid weight that felt like more than just paper. It felt like an option, a glimmer of possibility. It felt like hope, an emotion Joyce hadn't allowed herself to feel in a very long time. 3 days after her collapse at the hospital, Joyce found herself standing outside the James Island Assisted Living Center, struggling to gather the strength to go inside. She'd actually gotten a full 8 hours of sleep the night before, which was more rest than she'd had in months. The forced leave was giving her a chance to recover, but the lack of income was a constant gnawing worry. Still, seeing her dad was the priority. The center was decent enough, it was clean, and the staff seemed fine, but it wasn't his home. Every single time she walked through those automatic doors, guilt settled on her like a heavy cloak. Her father should have been in his own house, surrounded by his memories, living his final years with dignity. Instead, he was in this shared room with a man lost to advanced dementia, all because it was the only thing Joyce could manage to pay for. She pushed her way inside. There he was, James Nelson, her father, sitting in the common area by a window. He was only 68, but he looked closer to 80, his once powerful build diminished by his illness. This was a man who had dedicated 40 years to construction, whose hands had helped build half of Charleston. Now he couldn't get around without a cane, needed someone to make sure he took his medicine, and had lost his independence completely. Life had a cruel sense of humor. "Hey, Dad." He looked over and his entire face lit up. "Joyce, girl, there you are. I was wondering when I'd see you." She had been there only 4 days ago, a clear sign his memory was slipping further. Joyce pushed down the lump in her throat and sat down next to him. "How are you feeling? Can't complain." "I mean, I could, but who's got the time to listen?" He flashed a grin, and in that moment, she saw a glimpse of the father she grew up with, strong, funny, and completely present. "You look tired, baby." "I'm okay." "You're a terrible liar. You got that from your mom." He wasn't wrong. His gaze drifted away. "She'd be worried sick about you working this much. Mom would understand." "No, your mother would tell you to put yourself first. You can't pour from an empty cup," she always said. James took Joyce's hand in his. His skin was thin like paper and speckled with age. "I don't want you giving up your life for me, Joyce. I've lived my life. It's time for you to live yours." "Dad, I mean it. You're 33 years old. You should be traveling, falling in love, starting a family of your own, not grinding yourself down to keep me in a place like this." Joyce's throat grew tight. "You are my family, and I am not sticking you in some state-run facility where you're just a number. I won't do it. Not for you and not for Mom's memory. You both deserve better." They sat quietly together for a bit. Joyce filled the silence with carefully selected stories from work, leaving out any mention of her collapse. Finally, she hugged him goodbye with a promise to return in a few days. As she walked to her car, the crushing exhaustion began to seep back into her bones. A week without work meant a week without a paycheck, putting her even further behind. It meant that eventually an impossible decision would have to be made. Her phone buzzed, displaying an unknown number. She nearly ignored it, but some instinct made her swipe to answer. "Hello, Joyce Nelson." The man's voice was smooth, its formal tone softened by a warm Southern accent. "This is Donald Eley. You might not remember, I'm the man who left his card for you at the hospital." Joyce's heart hammered against her ribs. "I remember. I sincerely hope I'm not intruding by calling. I'd asked Sarah to give you my number for you to use." "I didn't call." Joyce said, her brows furrowing in confusion. "Oh," a brief pause. "My apologies. It seems Sarah must have provided me with your number instead. That was out of line on my part. It's okay." And to her own surprise, it actually was. "You were just checking in on me. I wanted to make sure you were doing all right. You reached out a complete stranger just to check on me after watching me literally pass out from exhaustion. That alone means you're not a stranger anymore. You're someone I'm actually worried about." His tone had an undeniable sincerity. It wasn't condescending charity or pity, just pure, straightforward concern. "I'm all right," Joyce managed, feeling a blush creep up her neck, "but I'm fine. You have nothing to be embarrassed about. The human body has its breaking point. It sounds to me like you've been pushing way past yours for some time now." "I know that's not always a choice." A moment of silence passed between them. "Joyce, I realize this is very forward, and you have every right to end this call, but I would really like to help, if you'll allow me." Here we go, Joyce thought. The conditions, the unstated expectations, the price tag attached to his offer. "Help? How could you possibly help? I'm the owner of a medical technology firm. My entire professional life is about innovating healthcare equipment, but I so rarely have the chance to help a person directly. You're a nurse who gives everything to her patients. For once, let me do something for you. I don't take handouts, Mr. Eley. Please call me Donald. And I'm not offering a handout. I'm offering a hand up. There's a world of difference. Joyce fought the urge to be cynical. She'd learned the hard way that wealthy men never helped women like her without wanting something in return. But his voice lacked that calculating edge, the predatory tone she'd become so skilled at detecting. Perhaps she was simply too exhausted to keep her guard up. What kind of help are you talking about? She asked, her voice cautious. Whatever it is you require. Medical debt, day-to-day expenses, a chance to take time off. I have more resources than I know what to do with, and you have needs that I can meet. It's just simple arithmetic. Arithmetic, Joyce repeated, baffled. And basic human decency. I'm aware that's not exactly abundant these days, but I'm doing my part to change that. In spite of herself, a small smile touched Joyce's lips. Why me? You know nothing about me. I know that you work until you collapse caring for other people. I know that you're carrying a burden so heavy, it's about to crush you. And I know what it feels like to wish someone had been there for you when you were desperate. His voice softened with a deep ache. I lost my wife 4 years ago to cancer. I liquidated everything I had to try and save her, but it didn't change a thing. She passed away anyway. But during those last months, people came out of the woodwork to help us, our friends, total strangers in the medical team who went so far beyond their duties. I promised myself that if I was ever in a position to pay that kindness forward, I would. Joyce's breath hitched in her throat. I am so sorry about your wife. Thank you. Her name was Anne. She was a doctor. I think she would have liked you. His words hung in the air between them, heavy with a grief that still felt fresh. Donald, Joyce said softly, I truly appreciate this, but I can't accept money from a man I don't know. It wouldn't feel right. Then what if I wasn't a stranger? What if we took the time to get to know one another? What are you proposing? Come to dinner with me tomorrow evening. Nothing fancy, just two people talking. It'll give you a chance to see if I'm trustworthy. And if you feel I am, then you can let me help. If you don't, the worst that can happen is you get a free dinner out of it. Joyce knew she should refuse. She should end the call, delete his number, and put the whole conversation out of her mind. A rich man with good intentions was still a rich man, and she'd seen firsthand the wreckage left behind when women from her world got mixed up with men from his. But she was just so tired, and he had lost his wife. And something in his voice made her feel like he understood, a kind of exhaustion that went far deeper than the physical kind. Just dinner, she asked for confirmation. Just dinner, I promise. Okay, tomorrow night. She could almost feel his smile through the phone. Thank you, Joyce. I'll send you the details in a text. After the call ended, Joyce just sat in her car staring at her phone. What had she just done? She'd agreed to have dinner with a billionaire who had seen her at her absolute worst and still decided she was a worthy investment. It was utterly unbelievable. It was also the first time in months that help had been offered before she'd been forced to beg for it. Maybe just for a moment, she could let something good into her life. Donald ended the call and let out a long breath he hadn't even known he was holding. She had said yes. He had spent the last 3 days coming up with reasons not to call her. It was crossing a line. She was a complete stranger. He was getting involved where he shouldn't. Yet every time he tried to push the thought of Joyce Nelson away, he would see her crumpling in that hospital hallway, the exhaustion carved into her very posture. He recognized that feeling intimately. After Anne passed, Donald had poured himself into his work with a singular, desperate intensity. He'd built his company from scratch because if he ever stopped moving, the grief would catch up to him. There were 18-hour workdays, nights spent sleeping in his office, and meals he completely forgot to eat. Eventually, his father had to fly in from Florida and stage an intervention forcing Donald to take a month off. He made him sleep, and he made him remember that he was still alive, even if Anne wasn't. Joyce didn't seem to have anyone to do that for her, so perhaps Donald could step in. Or perhaps he was just a lonely widower trying to find a new purpose by meddling in someone else's life. He dismissed the thought and phoned his assistant. Catherine, I need you to get me a table for tomorrow evening. Somewhere nice but not pretentious, comfortable. Any particular place? Is this for business or personal arsenal? A beat of silence. In the 4 years since Anne's passing, Donald had not had a single personal dinner with anyone. Catherine was aware of this. Is this a date, Mr. Eley? It's dinner with a person who could use a friend. That has all the makings of a date. It isn't. He paused, questioning himself. Was it I don't know what it is, honestly. Just book a place where we can have a quiet conversation. I suggest Fig. It's in the downtown area. It's intimate but relaxed. Great food, phenomenal wine. I will make the arrangements. Thank you, Catherine. After he hung up, Donald went to his office window, which looked out over Charleston Harbor. The water was a soft, gray blue beneath the autumn sky. He watched boats leaving white trails on its surface. Anne had always loved the water. They had often spoken of buying a sailboat one day, taking it to the Caribbean, and growing old by the shore. But their one day never arrived. For 4 years, Donald had managed to convince himself he was fine by himself. He had his corporation, his projects, and his meticulously organized life. He didn't require anyone else. He didn't want the vulnerability that caring for someone brought with it. But then he'd watched Joyce collapse and something inside his chest had fractured. It wasn't about romance, at least not then. Maybe it never would be. It was something deeper, more human, a profound connection between two weary spirits. His only impulse was to lend a hand, nothing more. He figured if their connection blossomed into something else, he'd handle it when the time came. Meanwhile, Joyce was practically beside herself the entire next day, wondering what on earth she could possibly wear to have dinner with a billionaire. A look through her wardrobe presented only two options: hospital scrubs or ancient jeans and t-shirts that had been washed into a state of near transparency. She possessed nothing remotely nice enough for the kind of place Donald Eley was likely taking her. Finally, she called her work friend Kesha. "I need you. This is a 5-alarm emergency." Kesha arrived an hour later carrying a garment bag. "Give me all the details." Joyce relayed the story of her collapse, the business card, and the unexpected phone call. Kesha listened, her eyes widening with each new piece of information. "Wait a minute, a billionaire CEO actually called you and invited you to dinner. It's not a date, he just offered to help." "Uh-huh. And I'm positive his offer to lend a hand is completely unrelated to the fact that you're gorgeous, even when you're practically collapsing from fatigue." "Keisha, all I'm trying to say is that men don't just call up strangers and offer assistance unless there's some kind of spark. Believe me." With that, Keisha unzipped the garment bag. "Now I've got choices." The first dress she revealed was a rich, deep burgundy. It was understated yet incredibly classy. "This is going to look stunning on you. I promise, I just can't. You should think about going by yourself." "And Joyce." Keisha's face grew serious. "Let the man help you. I get that you're accustomed to handling everything on your own. I know you have this idea that letting someone help means you're weak or dependent or some other story you've convinced yourself of, but that's not true. It only means you're human." Joyce accepted the dress. "But what if he expects something for it, then you just tell him no? But what if he doesn't expect anything? What if he's genuinely a good guy who noticed someone struggling and wanted to do something about it? They do exist, you know." "Really?" "Well, my husband is real, so yes, decent men are definitely out there. It's possible you've just run into one." That night, Joyce found herself staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The dress was a perfect fit. Her hair, naturally curly, framed her shoulders softly. She had applied some makeup, not a lot, just enough to conceal the deepest shadows of her exhaustion. She almost looked put together, like a woman who had things under control. Almost. Donald's text message had suggested 7 o'clock at Fig, a downtown restaurant Joyce had passed 100 times without ever stepping inside. It was always too pricey, too upscale, just too much. She got there 5 minutes ahead of schedule, her stomach churning with anxiety. What was she even doing here? And then she caught sight of him. Donald Eley was standing by the entrance, and it made Joyce's breath hitch in her throat. He was tall, around 6'2", with dark hair showing the first signs of silver. At his temples, a defined jawline and blue eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He wore an expensive suit with an air of effortless grace. The man was objectively handsome, and the smile he gave her was as if she were the only woman in the entire place. "Joyce, I'm so glad you could make it. Thank you for asking me." Her voice sounded far more composed than she felt. When he extended his arm, she hesitated for only a second before taking it. His warmth seeped through his jacket sleeve, feeling solid and reassuring. The restaurant had an intimate atmosphere with dim lighting, exposed brick walls, and tables set far apart to allow for private conversations. The hostess guided them to a booth in the corner, and Donald politely waited for Joyce to be seated before he sat down. He asked, "Is this your first time here?" "No, I rarely go out to eat." "Me neither, to be honest. I'm always swamped with work." He offered a small smile. That's probably why my assistant was practically ecstatic when I told her to book a table. How long has she been with you, Catherine? For 6 years. She's the one who really manages my schedule. I'd be completely lost if she weren't there. A thoughtful look crossed Donald's face. Hiring her was actually Anne's idea. My wife. She insisted I needed someone who would make sure I ate and slept like a regular person. Did her plan work for a time? But then Anne fell ill and everything just fell by the wayside. After she passed away, Catherine was the person who kept me from completely unraveling. A waiter came to their table and took their drink orders. Once he was gone, Joyce spoke up. Tell me about her, about Anne. The light returned to Donald's eyes the way it does when someone speaks of a person they truly loved. She was a hurricane of a woman, a pediatric oncologist. She decided to become a doctor after her little brother passed away from leukemia when she was only 15. She was driven to save children like him. That's a beautiful reason. It was. She was brilliant and kind and had a wonderful sense of humor. We first met at a medical conference. I was there trying to pitch my very first piece of diagnostic equipment, and she was presenting her latest research. She told me my sales pitch was atrocious. A smile touched Joyce's lips. And you decided to marry her anyway. I married her precisely because of that. She was straightforward and honest, and she didn't give a damn about my money or my career prospects. She simply saw me for who I was. His voice grew softer. We had 8 years together. It wasn't nearly long enough, but I'm incredibly thankful for the time we did have. The sorrow in his voice was so thick you could feel it. It was real. Joyce knew it well. She had been carrying that same kind of grief for her own mother. How did you manage to get through it, she asked. Losing her, the truth is I didn't. For the longest time, I just worked 80-hour weeks building my company into this huge enterprise, because if I ever stopped, I'd have to face what I had lost. It was my father who finally stepped in. He forced me to take a break. He made me face my grief head on. Donald looked directly at her. It was a full 2 years before I even started to feel like myself again. And there are still days I don't. I'm so sorry. Please don't be. Grief is really just love that has no place to go. I feel fortunate that I got to love her at all. He paused for a moment. What about your story? Tell me about your mother. Joyce immediately stiffened. She never discussed Ma. Not with people she just met, not really with anyone. But Donald's eyes held such kindness, and he had just laid his own grief bare. Perhaps she could open up about hers. Her name was Patricia. She passed away 5 years ago from Alzheimer's. The words felt like daggers coming out. She was only 53, far too young. I was 28, just out of nursing school and absolutely buried in student debt. I couldn't provide her with the quality of care she deserved. I had no choice but to place her in a state-run home. And it was just terrible. The staff was completely overwhelmed. The people living there were neglected, and my mama just slipped away. I went to see her every single day, but it was never enough. She was worthy of so much more. You did all that you were able to. No, I didn't. I let her down. And now my father is dealing with heart disease and diabetes, and he's in an assisted living facility. And I'm just sick with fear that I'm letting him down too. You are not letting anyone down, Joyce. You're sacrificing everything you have to look after him. That isn't failure. That is love. Tears welled up in her eyes, burning. It just never feels like it's enough. Donald's hand found hers across the table, his touch a warm, steadying presence. When you care for someone, it never feels like you're doing enough, but you're going above and beyond what most people would. Your dad is so fortunate to have you. After they placed their order, the mood lightened as they moved on to easier subjects. Donald shared stories about his childhood in Charleston, about his father, who was an engineer, and about how he built his entire company from the ground up. Joyce, in turn, spoke about her time in nursing school, her brother who lived in Atlanta, and the exact moment she realized she was meant to be a nurse. By the time dessert was served, Joyce had nearly forgotten her earlier anxiety. Joyce, Donald began as they were finishing their coffee, I want to be able to help you. I realize the thought makes you uneasy, but just hear what I have to say. She tensed up. This was it. The other shoe was about to drop. Your father's care runs $2,000 a month. That comes out to $24,000 a year. To me, that's just a rounding error on a quarterly financial statement. To you, it's completely breaking you. Let me just handle his expenses for 1 year. Just give yourself some space to breathe, to rest, to eat, and to feel like a person again. Joyce's first impulse was to decline to insist that she didn't need anyone's charity. But then Keisha's words came back to her. Let the man help you. Why, Joyce asked him. What makes you want to help me? Because I'm in a position to, and because you need it. Because seeing you on the verge of collapsing brought me back to how I was after Ann passed. And I'm all too familiar with what happens when you push yourself beyond your breaking point. He gave her hand a gentle squeeze. And it's possible that I need this as well. For 4 years, I've done nothing but build up walls, keeping myself isolated from the world. Being able to help you, it makes me feel human again. The sincerity in his tone seemed to loosen a knot deep inside her. If I agree, she began cautiously, what's in it for you? Just knowing I could help someone who was struggling. That was it. No hidden clauses, no future favors, simply one person extending a hand to another. Joyce studied his expression, looking for any hint of a lie or ulterior motive, but all she saw was pure honesty. Perhaps genuinely good men still walk the earth. All right, she breathed out. All right, I'll take you up on your offer. Thank you, Donald. The smile that broke across his face was dazzling. No, thank you for trusting me. It was past 10 o'clock when they finally departed the restaurant, and Donald escorted Joyce to her vehicle. The Charleston air had a distinct chill, a sure sign that autumn was truly taking hold. Can we do this again? Donald asked just as they got to her car. No agenda, I promise. I would just really enjoy getting to know you more. A flutter started in Joyce's chest. This was turning into something real. She could sense it. I'd love that. Great, I'll give you a call. The entire drive home felt like a wonderful haze. Donald Eley had actually proposed to cover her father's expenses. An entire year of reprieve, a year where she wouldn't have to run herself into the ground, a year filled with new possibilities. It all felt completely unreal. Yet as she glanced at her phone before turning in for the night, a new message from Donald was there. Thanks again for tonight. You're an incredible woman, Joyce Nelson. This wasn't a dream. This was happening. For the first time in 5 long years, Joyce climbed into bed free from the suffocating pressure of impossible decisions. And for the first time, she truly slept. A couple of weeks into October, Joyce awoke, and the usual tight ball of anxiety in her gut was gone. It took a few seconds for her to place why everything felt so different. And then it hit her. Donald's initial $2,000 payment for her dad's care had shown up in her bank account yesterday like some kind of miracle. The facility was covered through the end of November. There was even cash to spare for food. Actual food, not just the survival rations of peanut butter and bread she'd been living on. After 5 years of holding her breath, Joyce finally felt like she could exhale. She just laid there gazing at the ceiling as tears streamed from the corners of her eyes. They weren't tears of sadness, but of overwhelming relief. The kind of cathartic cry that comes only after a burden you thought was permanent is finally gone. Her phone vibrated on the nightstand. It was a message from Donald. Good morning, Joyce. How are you today? They had messaged each other every single day following that dinner. It started with simple check-ins. Morning. How was work? Hope you're getting some rest. But soon it evolved into much deeper conversations. They shared stories of Ann and Patricia, of their childhoods, of the ambitions they had once set aside. Joyce realized she anticipated his texts more than she was comfortable admitting. Joyce, I feel better than I have in ages. I can't thank you enough for all of this. Donald, you don't need to keep thanking me. Joyce, yes, I do. You've given me my life back. Donald, you did all the hard work. I just cleared a hurdle for you. Speaking of which, have you had breakfast yet? Joyce, not yet. Donald, meet me at Callie's Hot Little Biscuit in 30 minutes. My treat for the best breakfast in all of Charleston. A smile touched Joyce's lips as she read his text. Her sensible side screamed that she should decline. She had already taken so much from him. But the idea of being with Donald again, of seeing him across a table, listening to his voice, and watching the corners of his blue eyes crinkle when he smiled, sparked a warmth that spread through her entire body. Joyce, okay, see you in 30. She took a fast shower, gathered her curls into a messy bun, and put on a pair of jeans with a cozy green sweater Keisha had made her borrow. Looking at her reflection, she saw a stranger. The shadows under her eyes were beginning to fade. There was color in her cheeks. She appeared almost vibrant. It was incredible what a little sleep and proper nutrition could achieve. When she got to the restaurant, Donald was already there waiting, and the sight of him made her breath hitch, just like it always did. He was dressed down in dark denim and a navy Henley, looking relaxed and easygoing. Yet the way he looked at her was anything but casual. It was a gaze that made her feel seen, that made her feel cherished. "You look lovely," he said with genuine warmth. "You clean up pretty nice yourself," she retorted. He let out a laugh and held the door open for her. The inside of the cafe was small and intimate, filled with the aroma of butter and honey. They both chose biscuits with an array of toppings. Joyce went with the mushroom and brie simply because she now had the freedom to indulge. The thought itself was enough to bring fresh tears to her eyes. "So," Donald began after their coffee arrived, "how does it feel to have some space to breathe?" "Unbelievable. I'm constantly braced for everything to fall apart to wake up from all this. It isn't a fantasy. This is just how life is supposed to feel manageable. And you deserve that, Joyce. Everyone does. But not everyone has a billionaire magically appear to fix their problems. I'm not fixing you. You're fixing yourself. I'm just offering some tools," he replied, taking a drink of his coffee. "Though I have to confess I'm benefiting from this situation quite a bit myself." "Oh yeah, how?" "Well, my sleep has improved and I'm not working nearly as much. Catherine even commented that I'm becoming bearable to be around," he added with a self-mocking grin. He cleared his throat. "It seems that investing in another person is far more rewarding than boosting profit margins." "Groundbreaking stuff, isn't it? Who would have guessed?" He leaned in, his playful expression shifting to one of seriousness. "Honestly though, Joyce, speaking with you, learning about you, it has served as a powerful reminder that there's more to life than the office. That human connection is vital. I think I forgot that." The energy between them crackled, charged with an emotion Joyce didn't dare to identify. The arrival of their breakfast shattered the intensity of the moment. They started eating and steered the conversation towards safer topics. They discussed Charleston's past, their favorite novels, and the perfect spot to see the sun go down. But just beneath the surface, Joyce felt that undeniable current, the mutual attraction that was still unspoken but intensely felt by them both. When they finished, Donald escorted her back to her car. The October air was crisp, and the leaves were just beginning to show their autumn colors. "Joyce," he said gently, taking her hand just as she reached for the door handle. "Could I see you this evening? It doesn't have to be for dinner. Maybe we could just go for a walk. There's a place I want to show you." His thumb stroked the back of her hand, sending a jolt through her. "What kind of place?" "It's a very meaningful place for me. I have a feeling you'll understand why." A voice in her head told her to pump the brakes. Everything was moving so quickly. Maybe too quickly. But then she looked into Donald's eyes and saw a man who knew what it was like to be exhausted by grief. Someone who understood the immense burden of caring too deeply. He was a person who saw every part of her and wasn't scared away. "Okay," she murmured. "Tonight." The smile he gave her was like the sun bursting through a sky full of clouds. Donald arrived to get Joyce at 7 o'clock behind the wheel of a polished black SUV that was likely worth more than her yearly income, but he was completely unassuming about it. He simply opened her door, helped her settle in, and navigated the Charleston streets as if he were any other guy. They drove toward the peninsula, weaving through tight roads flanked by antebellum homes until they arrived at White Point Garden, right at the Battery's edge. After finding a parking spot, Donald guided her over to the waterfront. "Anne and I would often come here," he explained softly. "Right after she got her diagnosis back, when she was still able to walk, we would just sit here watching the boats and talking about all the things we had dreamed of doing, but now never would." They found an empty bench that looked out over the harbor. Sailboats drifted over the water as twilight settled in. Fort Sumter was a dark silhouette in the far distance. "I haven't set foot here since the day she passed away," Donald added. "I couldn't bring myself to come here alone, but I felt like I needed to share this with you." A lump formed in Joyce's throat. "But why me? Because you get what it's like to lose someone. You know how it feels for your life to be split into two parts, the before and the after. So many people just don't grasp that. They try to be supportive, but they can't truly comprehend it." He looked at her, his expression searching. "But you do, don't you?" "Yes, I really do." They fell into a comfortable silence, their eyes fixed on the sun as it dipped below the horizon. The sky bled from soft pink to a fiery orange, finally settling into a rich violet as the first stars pricked the darkness. Donald broke the silence unexpectedly. "Tell me a secret," he said, "something you wouldn't just tell anyone." Joyce's first instinct was to dodge the question, but he had opened up to her, bringing her to a place filled with painful memories. She owed him the same courage. There are times I get so mad at my mom. She confessed for getting ill, for passing away, for saddling me with all of this on my own. And I know that's not fair. I'm fully aware that Alzheimer's isn't something you choose, but the anger is still there. It's okay to feel that way, isn't it? Because it feels terrible. Grief doesn't make any sense. Anne and I shared 8 wonderful years. We made plans for everything: growing old, raising a family, creating a whole life together. And then cancer ripped it all away. I was furious with her, with God, with the entire cosmos. It took me a full year just to acknowledge that anger, and another one after that to stop hating myself for feeling it. Does the anger still come up? Not as much anymore. Now it's mostly just the missing her that remains. He met Joyce's gaze. But I'm discovering that it's possible to miss someone terribly and continue with your life. That honoring their memory doesn't require putting your own life on hold. Is that what this is for you moving forward? I'm making an effort. And getting to know you, that's made me want to put in even more of an effort. A palpable weight settled in the space between them, thick with unspoken emotion. Joyce's pulse hammered in her chest. Look, Joyce, I don't want you to think I'm expecting anything, he added, his words rushing out. I just needed to tell you that. You've shifted something inside of me. You reminded me how it feels to have someone to care for. Joyce's hand found its way to his, their fingers weaving together as if they'd done it 1,000 times. You've done the same for me, she replied. You've reminded me what it's like to have someone by my side. They remained there holding hands as the last light faded and night completely enveloped Charleston. Lights from the harbor shimmered across the dark water, and the distant call of a boat horn echoed in the quiet. In that moment, Joyce was filled with a feeling she hadn't experienced since long before her mother passed away, a deep sense of peace. In the weeks that followed, a comfortable routine began to form between them. A morning text from Donald would lead to a meeting for coffee or breakfast, and occasionally lunch on days Joyce had off. Their evenings were spent strolling through the charming historic district, taking drives to Folly Beach to see the ocean, or simply sharing a quiet space in Donald's office where he'd work while she lost herself in a book. Everything felt so effortless and right, as if their connection was years old, not mere weeks. And Joyce started to see other positive shifts in her life as well. She was putting on some healthy weight enough that her scrubs no longer hung off her frame, and the gaunt look in her face was gone. She was finally sleeping a full 7 hours a night, having 3 proper meals a day, and actually enjoying her days off instead of constantly taking on more shifts. It didn't go unnoticed by her colleagues. You've got a certain glow about you, Sarah commented one afternoon. So who is he? I have no idea what you mean. Oh, come on, you have the look of someone who's head over heels. Dish the details. A blush crept up Joyce's neck. Could she be falling in love? And it certainly wasn't something she had planned. It was completely unintentional. But Donald brought laughter back into her life, challenged her mind, and made her feel truly seen in a way that was entirely new to her. And every time he looked at her as if she were something unique and valuable that needed to be cherished, her heart would skip a beat. His name is Donald, Joyce finally conceded. He's the CEO, the one who was here that day I passed out. He's been well. We've started seeing each other. Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief. You mean the billionaire? Seriously, Joyce, it's not what you think. He was just being kind, helping me out. Sweetheart, a man like that doesn't dedicate all his free time to a woman just to be helpful. He is totally into you, isn't he? Joyce's mind replayed little moments, how Donald's hand would linger on hers a second too long as he helped her into the car. How his gaze followed her every move. How he always seemed to lean in a little closer when they spoke, as if drawn by an invisible force. Perhaps Sarah had a point. When Donald collected her after her shift that evening, he said he had something to show her at his office, and a wave of nervousness washed over Joyce. She'd never been to his workplace before. Isley Medical Technologies took up the entire top 3 floors of a skyscraper in the heart of the city. His office was a sprawling corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. The decor was sleek and modern, all sharp lines and minimalist furniture, yet it was warmed by personal items. There were pictures of Anne on his desk bookshelves filled with worn spines and a surprisingly resilient-looking plant in the corner. Wow, Joyce whispered in awe. This is incredible. It's honestly more space than I need, but you can't beat the view. Donald moved toward the vast windows. Come take a look. Joyce stood beside him, gazing down as the city unfolded beneath them, a tapestry of twinkling lights and moving cars. Charleston vibrant and stunning in the autumn night. Thank you, Donald said softly, for everything these last few weeks, for allowing me to be a part of your life. Thank you for wanting to be a part, she replied. He turned to face her, the space between them shrinking until Joyce's breath hitched in her throat. She could make out the strands of silver at his temples, the faint lines etched around his eyes, and the subtle clenching of his jaw as if he were restraining himself. Joyce, there's something I have to say. Okay, when I first met you after you fainted, I told myself I was just trying to be helpful. I thought it was about paying forward some of the compassion I received when Anne was ill. But over these last few weeks, he trailed off, struggling to find the right words. It's become more than just helping. The truth is I'm falling for you. And I have to know, am I in this by myself or do you feel something too? Joyce's heart was hammering against her ribs so violently she was sure he could hear it. You're not alone, she breathed. I feel it too. It terrifies me, but I definitely feel it. Why are you scared? Because being broken by loss is something I've been through already. Losing my mom almost shattered me completely. If I let you in, let myself really care, and then something goes wrong, then we would face it together, Donald said, cupping her face in his hands. I understand the risks, Joyce. Believe me, I've lived through them. But what I also know is that trying to avoid pain by hiding from life isn't really living at all. It's merely surviving, and I'm done with just surviving. Me too. Then let's give this a real try. We won't make any promises we can't keep other than to be honest. We won't have any expectations other than being there for each other. Just the two of us figuring things out as we go. Joyce relaxed into his touch. Okay, let's try. A smile spread across Donald's face, completely changing his expression. He lowered his head toward hers, his movements slow and deliberate, giving her every chance to back away. She didn't. The first touch of their lips was gentle, a hesitant question. But it deepened as Joyce's hands balled in the fabric of his shirt and his arms tightened securely around her waist. It was a kiss that held everything, tenderness and passion, caution and longing. It felt like both a new start and a silent vow. When they finally separated, Joyce was left breathless. I have been wanting to do that for a very long time, Donald confessed. Me too. They stayed in their embrace, the sparkling city lights, a backdrop far below, and a single thought echoed in Joyce's mind. This is what it feels like to be alive again. The following day, Joyce took Donald to see her dad. Her stomach was in knots. Bringing a man home to meet her father made everything feel so much more serious, so tangible. But Donald had let her into his world by sharing the memory of Anne. It was only right to let him into hers. Fortunately, James was having one of his good days. He was bright, engaged, and a wide smile lit up his face when Joyce entered with Donald. Dad, I'd like you to meet Donald Eley. Donald, this is my father, James Nelson. As the two men clasped hands, James gave Donald a thorough once-over with the keen eyes of a protective father. So you're the one who's brought the smile back to my girl's face, James said. Donald grinned. I do my best, sir. Dad was in construction for 40 years, Joyce added. Must have built half the hospitals in Charleston then, including Charleston Medical, Donald inquired. Parts of it, yeah. You worked on the expansion back in '98. A fine piece of work, if I do say so myself. They fell into an easy conversation about construction and building codes and how much Charleston had evolved over the decades. Watching them connect, Joyce felt a knot of anxiety in her chest finally unravel. Donald wasn't patronizing or dismissive towards her father. He didn't see him as a sick, elderly man. He just spoke to him as an equal. After about an hour, James started to show signs of fatigue. Donald and Joyce made their farewells, promising they would be back for another visit very soon. Out in the parking lot, Donald reached for Joyce's hand. Your father is a wonderful and strong man. I can definitely see where you get your spirit from. He took a liking to you. That doesn't happen with everyone. I'm truly honored. They started the drive back to Joyce's place. A comfortable silence filled the space between them in the car. While waiting at a red light, Donald said, Joyce, I need you to know something. Whatever this is that's growing between us, I'm 100% in. I'm not interested in playing games. I'm not just trying to pass the time. When I give my word to something, I'm fully invested. I'm the exact same way. When I start to care for someone, I'm all in. Good. He gave her hand a gentle squeeze. In that case, we're on the same page. That evening, Joyce found herself lying in bed, reliving every single moment of the day. The kiss, her dad's seal of approval, and Donald's sincere commitment. The whole situation felt fantastical, flawless and frightening all at once. She was falling in love with Donald Eley. That thought should have been more daunting than it was, but instead it felt like a ray of hope. November blew in, carrying with it a cooler breeze in the anticipation of the holidays. Joyce and Donald had been an item for 6 weeks ever since that first kiss made it official, though it felt like they'd known each other much longer. They just clicked. That was the only way Joyce knew how to put it. Donald was understanding of her demanding work schedule, her commitment to her father, and her fierce need for independence. And Joyce in turn understood Donald's journey with grief, his workaholic nature, and the careful way he was learning to open his heart again. They naturally carved out space for one another in their lives. Then one Saturday afternoon, Joyce found herself at Donald's home for the very first time. He resided in a beautifully renovated historic house in the French Quarter, a place filled with art shelves of books and cozy furniture. It was far warmer than the sterile environment Joyce had half expected from a billionaire. This was undeniably a home, not some kind of museum. They found themselves in the kitchen, supposed to be preparing a meal together, though in reality Donald was doing the cooking, while Joyce offered her opinions, tasted samples, and giggled at his constant banter. "Are you seriously telling me that you can steer a multi-million-dollar enterprise, but you're defeated by a simple onion?" Joyce teased. "I never claimed I couldn't. I simply said I would rather not. Onions have a tendency to make me cry. That's only because you're chopping them incorrectly." "All right then, chef, show me how it's done." Joyce came up behind Donald, her hands gently guiding his, and the sheer domesticity of the act resonated deep within her. This is what a real future could feel like. Preparing food, sharing laughs, creating a life together. Joyce, Donald said quietly without looking away from the cutting board. "Is it all right if I ask you something?" "Always. When you picture your future, what comes to mind?" She took a moment, her hands still resting over his. "Honestly, for such a long time, I was unable to see beyond the next overdue bill, the next exhausting shift, the next emergency. I had completely forgotten what it was like to even dream of a future. But now I can see potential. I see my dad being cared for. I see myself being healthy and genuinely happy. I see," she paused, "what I see you as a part of my future, if that's a place you'd want to be." Donald spun around in her embrace, the onion now completely forgotten. "Joyce Nelson, there is absolutely nowhere else I would rather be." He leaned in and kissed her, then a kiss that was deep, unhurried, and filled with promise. And Joyce met his kiss with equal passion, channeling everything she was feeling into it. Love, hope, trust, all the emotions she feared she had lost forever. When their lips finally parted, Donald rested his forehead against hers. "I'm falling in love with you," he breathed. "I probably already have. I just really wanted you to know that." Joyce felt her heart absolutely soar. "I'm falling so hard for you too. It's a little scary. A good kind of scary or a bad kind? A good kind. The kind you feel when you know something truly matters. It does matter. You matter." He kissed her forehead tenderly. "We matter." They finished preparing their meal together, and later they sat on Donald's back patio, wrapped up in blankets, watching as the stars began to pepper the Charleston sky. And Joyce reflected on how just 6 weeks ago she had been at her breaking point, collapsing from pure exhaustion with absolutely no hope on the horizon. Now it felt like she had everything she could ever want, her health, peace of mind, and this was just the start. Hey family, if you've stuck with this story all the way to this point, I hope it has touched you in some way. Please leave your thoughts down in the comments and let me know where in the world you are watching from. And please don't forget to like and hit that subscribe button if you're new here. Go ahead and smash that hype button if you got some value from this story. It's a massive help to my channel. With Thanksgiving only 2 weeks away, Joyce was in uncharted waters, actually making plans for a holiday she could finally afford to celebrate. For the previous 5 years, Thanksgiving had simply meant taking on an extra shift at the hospital and eating whatever was being served in the cafeteria. There was no time for turkey, no spare cash for the trimmings. It was just another Thursday on the calendar that underscored everything she had lost. But this year felt completely different. "You should come to my father's place," Donald proposed while they were having breakfast at their go-to spot. Callie's had unofficially become their Thursday morning ritual. "He's coming up from Florida. I'd really love for you to properly meet him." Joyce felt a flutter in her stomach. Meeting his father felt like a huge step. It felt official, like this thing between them was real and lasting. "Are you sure about that? I'd hate to impose on your family time." Donald reached out across the table and took her hand in his. "Joyce, you are my family time. Dad has been asking about you nonstop for weeks. I've told him all about you." "Everything?" "Well, maybe not everything." A playful glint appeared in his eyes. Some things need to remain private, but he is fully aware of how important you are to me. He wants to meet the woman who taught me how to live again. A lump formed in Joyce's throat. Okay, yes, I would be delighted to meet your father. Excellent. Just a heads up, though, he's definitely going to put you through an interrogation. It's a dad thing. I can survive an interrogation. I am a nurse. We handle difficult people on a daily basis. My father isn't difficult. He's just protective, especially since Anne passed away. He had to watch me completely shut down for 4 years. Now that he sees me happy again, he'll just want to confirm that it's the real deal. It is real, Joyce affirmed softly. I know that, but he needs to see it with his own eyes. Donald gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. And I want him to see us together. I want him to know that I'm finally okay. That afternoon, Joyce paid a visit to her own father. She had gotten into a rhythm of seeing him 3 times a week, which was frequent enough to feel connected, but not so much that it left her completely drained. Everything felt perfectly in its place. James sat in the garden basking in the pale November sunlight, and a smile touched his lips as he saw Joyce coming toward him. There she is, he said softly. Come sit with me. Joyce eased herself down next to him, and together they observed the other residents strolling through the garden, some leaning on walkers for support. Some used wheelchairs, while everyone else shared the slow shuffling gait of age and infirmity. How are you holding up, Dad? I can't complain. Well, I could, but you know the whole story already. He gave her hand a gentle pat. You've got a glow about you, baby. A real happiness. Donald must be treating you well. He's more than well. Joyce trailed off, searching for the word. He's wonderful, Dad. He makes me feel like my old self. Good. A woman like you deserves a man who sees the real you, truly sees you. James fell silent for a beat. Your mother would have really liked him. Joyce's eyes welled with tears. You really think so? I'm sure of it. She always said you'd meet someone who could understand your soul, a man who would match your fire instead of trying to put it out. He looked straight at Joyce. This man loves you. I see it clear as day. The way he looked at you when you first brought him here. That's a man who knows just how lucky he is. I love him too. Does that sound insane? We've only been seeing each other for 6 weeks. Love doesn't pay attention to a clock, sweetheart. Your mother and I knew we were forever after just 2 weeks. When you know there's no question. I know, Joyce whispered. I'm scared out of my mind, but I know. That's good. Being scared means it's important. James squeezed her hand firmly. Don't you let fear cheat you out of being happy. Your mama wouldn't stand for that. And neither will I. Go live your life, Joyce. Fall deeply in love. Go build a beautiful life. That was our only wish for you. Joyce embraced her father, taking in his familiar scent of soap, old books, and a faint trace of the garden. She noticed he felt more fragile than he had a month ago, and the realization sent a pang through her chest. Time was slipping away. It never stopped. I love you, Dad. I love you too, my Joyce girl. Now get going and live. That same evening, Donald brought Joyce to Eley Medical Technologies to introduce her to his team. It was a casual pre-Thanksgiving get-together at the office. There were no clients, just the employees celebrating another profitable quarter. Donald wanted Joyce to get to know the people who were his support system during his toughest years. Joyce's stomach was in knots. These were educated, successful business people living in a world completely alien to her. What if they judged her? What if she was totally out of place, but Donald's hand felt steady on her back as they walked in, and his pride was impossible to miss. Everyone, he called out, and the room grew quiet. This is Joyce Nelson. She's a nurse over at Charleston Medical. She is absolutely brilliant, and she's made me happier than I've felt in years. You'd all better be nice to her, or you're fired. A ripple of laughter went through the room before people began to close in. Catherine, Donald's assistant, was the first to give Joyce a hug. Finally, I have been dying to meet you. Donald is always talking about you. It's actually really endearing. I do not always talk about her, Donald protested. You absolutely do, said a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair. I'm Thomas Hayes, VP of Operations. And believe me, Donald finds a way to mention you in every single meeting. It's Joyce says this, Joyce thinks that. We're all just sick of hearing it. You are not sick of it, Donald shot back. No, we're thrilled, Catherine added. He's actually nice to be around now. Before you, he was a total workaholic nightmare. Now he goes home at a decent hour and actually smiles. You're a miracle worker. Joyce blushed. I really didn't do anything. You reminded him that he's a human being. Thomas said with a serious tone. That means everything. The party continued to buzz around them. People were curious about Joyce's life as a nurse, her job at Charleston Medical. Everything. Not a single person treated her like she didn't belong or made her feel inferior. Donald watched her from across the room while he spoke with his CFO, never letting Joyce out of his sight. Every so often, their eyes would lock, and he'd flash that private smile that was hers alone. Later on, as the gathering started to thin out, Joyce joined Donald on the balcony overlooking the city. Your team is just wonderful, she said, tucking herself under his arm. They like you. I never doubted they would. Catherine claims you talk about me nonstop. Catherine has a flair for the dramatic. Does she? Joyce tilted her head to look up at him. Do you actually talk about me in your meetings? Maybe. Sometimes when it's relevant. He kissed her forehead. Okay, fine. Constantly. You're constantly on my mind. Happy now. Very. They stood in silence, watching the city lights glitter. The November wind carried the scent of the harbor, a mix of salt marsh grass and home. Joyce spoke softly. Donald, I have to tell you something. Okay. I'm falling more in love with you every single day, and it terrifies me because everyone I have ever loved has left me. My mother died. My father is dying. And I know that loss is coming for me again one day. But I'm choosing to love you despite that because you are worth the risk. Donald turned her to face him, cupping her face with his hands. Joyce Nelson, I'm going to make you a vow. I can't promise that I'll be here forever. I can't promise that we won't have struggles, but I can promise to love you with my entire being for as long as I have breath in my lungs. And I promise that you will never have to face a single thing by yourself. That's all I need. He kissed her, then a kiss that was deep and complete, and Joyce felt her fear begin to recede. It wasn't gone completely. Fear never really is, but it became something she could manage, something she could survive, because she was no longer alone. Thanksgiving morning brought a cold rain under gray skies, but inside Donald's house it was warm and filled with the delicious aroma of a roasting turkey. Donald's father, William Eley, had come in the night before. He was a tall man in his early 70s with the same blue eyes as his son and a warm smile. He had hugged Joyce right away without any hesitation or judgment. So you're the one, he had said, the woman who brought my son back to the land of the living. I think we brought each other back, Joyce had responded. William had given her a sharp, genuine smile. I like her already, Don. Now Joyce was in Donald's kitchen putting the last touches on the meal while Donald and William were in the living room having a good-natured argument about football. Do you need any help? Donald came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. I've got this. Go entertain your father. Oh, he's entertained. He's winning the argument. Donald rested his chin on her shoulder. Thank you for being here. For making this feel like a proper Thanksgiving. Where else would I be? I don't know, but I'm incredibly grateful you're here. Catherine had been invited to join them as well. She had admitted to Donald that she had no family in Charleston, so their dinner was a small, intimate affair. Just 4 people who cared for one another sharing a meal and conversation. William asked Joyce about her career, her dad, and her dreams. He listened with the same intense focus that Donald always did. And in that moment, Joyce understood where Donald got his gift of attentiveness. My son tells me you're the strongest person he knows, William said while they ate dessert. Joyce blushed. I don't know about that. I do. Donald doesn't throw around compliments. If he says you're strong, then you're strong. William's expression grew serious. He also tells me that you blame yourself for your mother's care, that you believe you failed her. Joyce felt her chest tighten. I did. No, you were 28, just out of school and drowning in debt. You did everything that was humanly possible. Your mother would have been so proud of you. How do you know that? Because I'm a father, and if I were sick and my child was sacrificing their own life to save me, it would break my heart. No parent wants to see their child eaten up by guilt. We just want you to live to find happiness and build a wonderful life for yourself. He reached over the table and took her hand in his. Your mother loved you, Joyce, and that love was unconditional. It didn't come with any strings attached. All she hoped for was for you to find your own happiness. The best way to honor her memory is by living a full life. That's all she ever would have wanted. Tears clouded Joyce's vision. Thank you, she whispered. Once dinner was over, William took Donald to the side for a private word. Joyce tried to look away, but she couldn't help but see William embrace his son tightly, saying something that made Donald's eyes well up. A while later, after Catherine and William had gone home, Joyce and Donald were cleaning the kitchen together. "So what did your dad say to you?" Joyce asked. "He told me you're the one. Said he hadn't seen me this content since before Anne fell ill. He told me I needed to hold on to you and never let you go." "And what did you tell him?" "That I didn't need him to tell me. That I plan on holding on for as long as you'll have me." Joyce put the plate she was washing down in the sink and turned to him. "Donald, there's something you need to understand. I'm not going anywhere. I realize this is still new for us, and we're still getting to know each other, but I am all in. 100%. You're the one for me." Raw emotion washed over Donald's face. "You're the one for me, too. I never thought I'd find this a second time. Love a true partner, someone who just gets me. And then you fainted in that hallway and my whole world shifted. It was the best and worst day of my life. Mine, too." He gave her a slow, deep kiss, and Joyce felt the final defense she'd built around her heart give way. For years, she had guarded herself against loss, against heartache, and the vulnerability of letting someone in. But being with Donald made her realize that being so guarded had a price. Those walls might have kept the pain out, but they blocked all the joy, too. She was done with walls. "Stay with me tonight," Donald murmured, his lips close to hers. "I don't want anything from you. I just want you here. Just stay. Let me hold you. Let me wake up next to you." Joyce's heart pounded in her chest. This was a major step. Once they crossed this line, there was no returning to just casual. But casual wasn't what she wanted. She wanted Donald. She wanted all of him for good. "Okay, I'll stay." The next morning, Joyce awoke to find herself enveloped in Donald's arms with the winter sun pouring through the windows. His bedroom was just as cozy as the rest of the house. It had a huge bed with incredibly soft sheets, walls lined with bookshelves and framed photos on his dresser. She noticed a picture of a young, smiling Anne, and seeing it didn't sting. Anne was a piece of Donald's past, a part of what made him who he was. Joyce could respect that. Morning, Donald's voice was husky from sleep. "You doing okay?" "Perfect. This is absolutely perfect." They had talked late into the night, snuggled up in his bed, sharing everything from childhood ambitions to grown-up regrets. They spoke of Anne and Patricia, of the people they both had lost, and of the new life they were starting to build with each other. Donald had held her as if she were the most precious thing in the world, like she truly mattered. And for the first time in 5 years, Joyce felt completely and utterly safe. "I should probably go see my dad today." Joyce said, "I'm coming with you. You really don't have to. But I want to. James means the world to you, so that makes him important to me, too." Donald planted a soft kiss on her temple. "Anyway, I really like your dad. He tells some amazing stories." After they had some breakfast, they drove over to the assisted living center. James was having one of his good days. He was clear-eyed and sharp, recalling even small details. "Happy Thanksgiving, and Dad?" "Happy Thanksgiving, sweetie." "And to you, Donald." James gave Donald's hand a warm shake. "I hope you two have a wonderful holiday." "The best one," Donald replied. "My dad finally met Joyce. He's pretty much adopted her already." "He's a smart man," James said, looking them over. "You two really suit each other. It's plain to see." They spent the next hour filling James in on their Thanksgiving dinner, William's visit, and everything else going on. As they were getting ready to go, James gave Joyce an especially tight hug. "Love you, Joyce, girl." "I love you too, Dad." Joyce was silent on the drive back. Donald glanced at her. "Everything all right?" "Yeah, it's just, he's going downhill. It's slow, but it's happening. His memory is fading. He's getting weaker." Her voice broke. "I know where this is heading, and I'm just not ready for it." Donald pulled the car over to the curb on a quiet street. He unfastened his seatbelt and turned completely toward her. "You can never really be ready for losing someone, no matter how much you see it coming. When Anne passed, I'd had 2 years to get myself ready. 2 whole years of watching the cancer just consume her. And even then, when the end came, I wasn't prepared." He took both of Joyce's hands in his. "But I did learn something. You don't have to feel ready. You just need to be there for him. Cherish the time you have. Fill his days with good things. And when that day comes, you'll get through it. Because that's what people do. We endure. Will you be with me when it happens, Joyce? I will be right by your side wherever you need me to be. Always." At that, she kissed him, channeling all of her feelings into it, the gratitude, the love, the trust emotions she was sure she would never experience again. "I love you," she murmured. "I'm falling for you. I'm completely and terrifyingly in love with you." A brilliant smile lit up Donald's face. I'm in love with you too. I have been for weeks now. I was just looking for the perfect moment to tell you. Is this the right time? This is the perfect time. They just sat there in the parked car, holding one another, and Joyce reflected on how much had changed. Just 2 months earlier, she had been on the verge of collapse from pure exhaustion with no light at the end of the tunnel. And now she had found love, a real partnership, and a future she could genuinely look forward to. It was funny how life worked, how drastically things could turn around in an instant. The following weeks passed in a joyful haze. Joyce and Donald settled into a comfortable domestic routine that felt completely effortless. She would spend 3 or 4 nights a week at his place, and he would come over to her apartment on the other nights, insisting that he loved her cozy little space and how intimate it felt. They made dinner together, watched films, and chatted for hours about anything and everything. At work, her colleagues gave her a relentless hard time. "You're radiant, sir," commented. "I mean, you're literally glowing. It's almost sickening how happy you look." "Oh, I'm sorry. Don't you dare be sorry. Just make sure we get an invitation to the wedding." "We're not." Joyce trailed off. Was that where this was going at marriage? The idea should have sent her running for the hills, but instead it just felt right. Keisha didn't beat around the bush. "So when's he popping the question, Kesha? We've only been seeing each other for 2 months." "Oh, please." "When it's right, you know it. And trust me, that man knows. I've seen how he looks at you. He's just biding his time, waiting for the perfect opportunity." Joyce started to wonder if she was right. Donald had told her he was completely committed. He'd already introduced her to his father and his colleagues, and he had carved out a space for her in his life. But getting married, that was a permanent, forever kind of thing. Was she capable of handling forever? Her mind drifted to her own parents, how her dad still spoke about her mom as if she'd only left the room for a moment, not like she'd been gone for 5 years. She thought about how love could endure through sickness, death, and the passing of time. And yes, Joyce realized she could absolutely handle forever as long as that forever was with Donald. December blew in with chilly winds and the hint of Christmas in the air. Donald's company had its annual holiday party, and Joyce chose a stunning deep blue dress that made Donald's gaze smolder with admiration. "You look absolutely incredible," he whispered as they entered. "Will you clean up pretty nicely yourself?" The room was buzzing with shimmering lights music and the sound of people laughing. But about halfway through the evening, Donald gently pulled Joyce aside. "Hey, come with me. I want to show you something." He guided her into his office and shut the door behind them. The city glittered below its Christmas lights, transforming Charleston into a wonderland. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Donald said, "about where this is going, about what I really want, and what we're creating together." Joyce's heart began to pound. "Okay, I'm aware this is fast. I get that it's only been 2 months, but Joyce, I'm 36 years old. I've been down this road before. I know what real love feels like, and this is it. You are it." He took her hands in his. "I'm not asking for anything tonight. I simply needed you to know that I see a whole future with you. Marriage, a partnership, the entire thing. And when you're ready, no matter when that might be, I'll be right here waiting and hoping." Tears began to well up in Joyce's eyes. "Donald, you don't need to say anything." "No, I did. I just needed you to know." "Actually, there is something I need to say," Joyce replied, stepping toward him. "I see that exact same future. The marriage, all of it. And I'm not afraid any longer. Well, I am, but in a positive way. In a this is so important it's terrifying kind of way. So we're in agreement. Completely in agreement." Donald then kissed her a kiss that was both tender and deep, and Joyce felt her entire future just click into place. This was right. He was her person, her partner, her forever. Just 2 months ago, she had felt like she was slowly fading away. Now she was truly living, and it was a beautiful feeling. The call arrived on a Tuesday morning in the middle of December. Joyce was at Donald's place in the kitchen making coffee while he was upstairs in the shower. Her phone vibrated with an unfamiliar number, and a knot formed in her stomach even before she answered. "Is this Joyce Nelson?" "Yes. This is Rebecca from Magnolia Care Assisted Living. Your father, James Nelson, suffered a cardiac event this morning. He's been transported to Charleston Medical. You need to come as soon as you can." The phone slipped from Joyce's grasp. She managed to catch it just before it hit the floor, but just barely. "I'm on my way." 30 seconds later, Donald came into the kitchen, his hair still wet, wearing jeans and a t-shirt. "What's wrong?" "It's my dad. He had a heart attack. They've taken him to Charleston Medical." Joyce's voice was remarkably steady, even though her hands were shaking. I have to go and I need to get there. I'm coming with you. You don't have to, Joyce. Donald put his hands on her shoulders gently. I'm coming with you. We're taking my car. You're in no condition to drive. She had the urge to argue, to insist that she could manage on her own. But the reality was she didn't want to be by herself, not for something like this. Okay, thank you. They made their way through Charleston in a thick, tense silence. Joyce gazed out the window, not registering anything. Her mind was just racing with worst-case scenarios. This was it, the moment she had always been dreading, the moment that would make everything unravel. She had always believed she would have more time. The emergency department at Charleston Medical Center was a familiar environment. Joyce had been working there for years, but coming in as a family member instead of a staff member felt utterly surreal. It was wrong. James Nelson, she informed the receptionist. I'm his daughter. Room 7, Dr. Martinez is with him now. Dr. Elena Martinez met them just outside the room. She had that carefully neutral expression doctors adopt when they have to share bad news. Joyce, your father experienced a major cardiac event. We've managed to stabilize him, but it was incredibly serious. The damage his heart sustained is significant. Can I go see him? Of course, but Joyce, Elena touched her arm. You need to brace yourself. He is conscious, but extremely weak. Joyce went through the doorway with Donald right behind her. James was lying in the hospital bed looking smaller and more frail than Joyce had ever seen him. He was pale, fragile, and connected to monitors that beeped with rhythms she knew all too well. His eyes fluttered open as he heard them come in. Joyce, my girl, he whispered. Don't you cry, baby. I'm fine. But he wasn't fine. Joyce could tell by his strained breathing, the grayish tint of his skin, and the way his hands trembled against the blanket. She took his hand gently, being careful of the IV. I'm here, Dad. I'm right here. That's my girl. James's gaze shifted over to Donald. You looking after her? Always, sir. Good man. James coughed and the machines shrieked for a second before quieting. Joyce, I have to tell you something. I need you to listen closely. Dad, don't try to talk. You need to save your strength. No, I have to say this right now. His grip on her hand grew surprisingly firm. I'm proud of you, so very proud. You gave up so much for me and for your mother, but it's time for you to stop sacrificing. It's time for you to live for you. Dad, you have to promise me. Promise me you'll be happy. Promise you will marry this good man and create a life that is your own. Don't waste the rest of your life carrying around guilt over me. Tears were streaming down Joyce's face. I can't promise you that. I can't just let you go. You're not letting me go, sweetheart. I will always be right here with you. Your mom and I both will always be watching over you. He then looked at Donald. You'll look after her when I'm not able to anymore. I promise, sir. Then I can rest peacefully. James's eyelids were beginning to feel heavy. Love you, my Joyce girl, more than anything. I love you too, Dad, so very much. She remained with him as he drifted off to sleep, letting exhaustion and the medication pull him under. Donald stood just behind her, his hands on her shoulders, a solid and steady presence. Dr. Martinez came back into the room to check the monitors. We are moving him to the ICU for observation. The next 48 hours are going to be critical. What are his chances? Elena paused for a moment. Honestly, his heart was already weak. This attack has resulted in significant damage. Best case, he'll recover enough that he can go back to assisted living with more intensive care. Worst case, she trailed off. Worst case is he doesn't pull through. I am so sorry, Joyce. The following 2 days passed in a haze of hospital waiting and drinking terrible coffee. Joyce almost never left her father's bedside. Donald brought her meals, made sure she ate, and held her when she cried. He avoided empty reassurances and false hope. He was just present, simply being there. The ICU staff all recognized Joyce. She had worked with almost all of them. They would bring her blankets, give her updates, and offer gentle hugs. Sarah came by on her shift and just squeezed Joyce's hand without a word. Your people really love you, Donald noted. They're good people. This line of work, it'll break your heart every day, but the people here make it bearable. James would fade in and out of consciousness. At times, he would recognize Joyce talking with her about memories from her childhood. Other times, he'd get confused and think she was her mother, Patricia, and call her by the wrong name. Joyce held his hand through every moment of it. On the second night, Donald finally talked Joyce into leaving for a couple of hours. You need a shower, a real meal, and to sleep in an actual bed. I'll stay here with him. If anything at all changes, I will call you immediately. I can't leave him. You can and you have to. You're completely exhausted, Joyce. Your father would not want you to wear yourself out over him. She knew he was right. Her body was sore from the hard chairs in the ICU. Lack of sleep was making her head throb, but she just couldn't bring herself to leave. 2 hours she finally relented, that was all. Donald drove her to his place, which had somehow become their home over the past few months without them even realizing it. After a quick shower and some soup that Donald arranged for Catherine to drop off, Joyce collapsed into a deep, exhausted sleep. 4 hours later, her phone jolted her awake. It was Donald, his voice soft and cautious. Joyce, you have to come back. Your dad is asking for you. The ride to the hospital felt like it stretched on forever. Her hands trembled so intensely that Donald had to help her from the car. When she hurried into the ICU, James was conscious, but only just. His breathing was heavy and strained even with the oxygen mask. The monitors were displaying chaotic rhythms that set off every alarm in Joyce's nursing mind. Dad, it's me, Joyce. I'm here. His voice was barely a whisper. Been waiting for you. I am so sorry I left. Don't be sorry. You needed to rest. With a shaky hand, he pulled the oxygen mask from his face. I have to tell you something vital, sweetheart. Dad, leave the mask on. No, this is more important than air. His eyes were startlingly clear despite everything. I'm on my way out. We both know it, and that's all right. I've had a wonderful life. I had an amazing wife, raised great children, and I got to watch you find love. That's a better deal than most folks get. Dad, please just listen. Your mother, back when she was sick, she made me make a promise. She made me swear that when my time came, I wouldn't let you tear yourself apart with guilt. That I would tell you to live. Tears carved paths down his weathered cheeks. So I am telling you, Joyce, live. Love that wonderful man of yours. Have children. Create something beautiful. That's our wish for you. It's the only thing we ever wanted. I don't know how I'm supposed to let you go. You don't have to let go. You just need to continue living. We'll be with you always, sweetheart. In every right choice you make, in every happy moment, every time you love someone with your whole heart, we are there. Joyce buried her face in his hand, her body shaking with sobs. I'm not ready for this. Nobody ever is. But you are resilient. You're my daughter. You have that Nelson grit. You are going to get through this, and you will be happy again. Promise me you will be happy. I promise, Dad. I swear I'll try. That's my girl. James looked over Joyce's shoulder to where Donald was standing. You look after my little girl. Give her the life she's earned. I will, sir. I give you my word. Good. A peaceful, tired smile touched James's lips. Then I can rest. He fitted the oxygen mask back over his face and closed his eyes. The machines beeped a steady rhythm. Joyce held his hand, watching him breathe each inhale a gift and another tick of the clock. Donald stood as a solid presence behind her, his hand resting on her shoulder. He's not wrong, you know, Donald murmured about you being strong. You are the most resilient person I have ever known. I don't feel resilient. I feel like I'm shattering into a million pieces. You can be both. Resilience isn't about not shattering. It's about shattering and putting yourself back together anyway. He squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. And you won't have to do it by yourself. I am here through all of it. James Nelson passed away peacefully 48 hours later on a Thursday morning as the sun began to rise over Charleston. Joyce was holding his hand. Donald was right beside her. The monitors went flat with a continuous tone that felt far too simple for such a profound moment. The ICU staff moved with a quiet competence. Dr. Martinez entered, confirmed the time, and wrapped Joyce in a firm hug. I am so incredibly sorry, sweetheart. Joyce couldn't form words, could hardly draw a breath. She just gripped her father's still warm hand, trying to make sense of the fact he was gone. That the man who had constructed half of Charleston, who had filled her childhood with affection and laughter, who had dedicated his entire being to his family, was just no longer there. Donald gathered her into his arms and she completely broke down against his chest, overcome by great heaving sobs that shook her entire frame. All the sorrow she had been keeping at bay for days, weeks, even years came flooding out at once. I've got you, Donald whispered into her hair. I've got you, Joyce. Just let it all out. They stayed like that for a very long time, Joyce crying while Donald held her steady. The ICU team gave them their space. The world kept turning around them, even though Joyce's had just stopped. Eventually, the practicalities of death intruded forms to be signed, arrangements to be made, the funeral director to be called. Joyce moved through it all as if in a trance, Donald gently guiding her through each task. Her brother Robert arrived from Atlanta consumed by guilt and grief. They embraced in the funeral home, both weeping, both wishing they had done things differently. "He knew how much you loved him," Joyce said to Robert. "That's the important part." "Did he, though? I almost never visited. I hardly ever called. He knew. He always did." The funeral was an intimate service. James had outlasted most of his friends, and his family was not large. Even so, the chapel was standing room only. Nurses from Charleston Medical Center, the staff from his assisted living, home people whose houses James had built decades prior, they all came to pay their respects to a decent man who led a quiet, honorable life. Joyce delivered the eulogy, her voice trembling but unwavering. She spoke of her father's resilience, his humor, and his unconditional love for his family. She shared how he had worked his whole life to give his children opportunities he never had, and how he adored his wife with a love that transcended death. "He told me to live," Joyce said, her gaze sweeping over the attendees. "To love, to create something wonderful, and I will. Because that is what he would have wanted. Because that is how I can honor him, by living the life that he and my mom dreamed for me." Donald sat in the first row, his eyes never leaving Joyce, feeling proud, heartbroken, and full of love all at once. At the reception after the service, people began sharing stories. Robert told a funny one about James trying to teach him to fish. Catherine, who was there to support them, mentioned that Donald had spoken of James constantly about what a truly good man he was. William Eley, who had flown up from Florida again, held Joyce in a long hug. "Your father would be so incredibly proud of you, of the way you loved him, of how you are navigating this." "I don't feel like I'm navigating anything. Grief isn't something you navigate, honey. It's something you endure. And you will, because you are strong and because you are loved." He glanced at Donald. "And because my son loves you more than anything in this world." That evening back at Donald's, Joyce stood on the back patio staring up at the night sky. The biting December air touched her skin, but she didn't budge. Donald came out and wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. "You need to be inside. It's freezing. I can't sleep. I can't be still. If I'm still, then I have to feel everything. Perhaps feeling it all is what you need to do." Donald drew her back against him. "Joyce, your father never wanted you to stop feeling your grief. He just didn't want you to stop living because of it. Can those two things really happen at the same time? Because right now it feels like this sadness is all there is. It's not always going to feel this way. I promise. When Anne died, I thought I was drowning in sorrow. I thought I would never find my way back to the surface. But slowly, piece by piece, the grief transformed into something I could carry. It's never gone. It never leaves, but it becomes bearable. And then one day I realized I was actually living again. How much time did that take? 2 years, maybe 3. But Joyce, I was on my own. You're not by yourself. I'm here. You have friends and an entire community that cares about you deeply. That's what truly matters." Joyce shifted in his embrace to look up at his face. "I have no idea how I would manage without you. That's something you'll never need to figure out. I'm staying right here." He placed a soft kiss on her forehead. "Your father made me promise I'd look after you, and I plan on spending my whole life honoring that commitment. He thought the world of you. He was so glad that we found each other. The feeling was completely mutual. He was a wonderful man, Joyce, and he raised a truly incredible daughter." Donald's voice was heavy with emotion. "I'm just so sorry he's gone. I'm so sorry you're having to endure this. I am too." They held each other under the night sky, and for the first time Joyce allowed herself to truly mourn. She let the crushing reality of her loss wash over her without any attempt to be brave or put together. Donald just held her solid as a rock and warm as the sun. In time, sheer emotional exhaustion began to lull Joyce towards sleep. Donald gently guided her inside, tucked her into bed, and held her until she finally drifted away. The very last thing that crossed Joyce's mind before sleep overtook her was this: her dad had been right. She could get through this because she had Donald's love, and that made all the difference in the world. The weeks that followed were a blur of sorrow and endless paperwork. Joyce took a leave from the hospital, the first significant time she'd had off in years. She went through her father's things at the assisted living center, giving his clothes to charity, but keeping his old watch and his most used hammer, the very one he'd practically used to construct half of Charleston. Robert returned to Atlanta after about a week, vowing to call more and visit whenever he could. Joyce couldn't fault him for leaving. Grief is an exhausting process, and everyone navigates it differently. Donald was her rock through every moment, packing up boxes, sitting with her in comfortable silence, and holding her tight whenever a fresh wave of grief would hit her, whether in the supermarket, the car, or the dead of night. He never pushed her to heal faster or told her it was time to move on. He simply loved her through the darkest parts. "You're far too good to me," Joyce murmured one afternoon. They were in his living room, surrounded by boxes of her father's possessions she'd brought over to sort. "I am precisely as good to you as you deserve. I'm just a wreck," I burst into tears over nothing. "I can't concentrate. I can hardly do anything. You've just lost your father. You're allowed to be a wreck." Donald drew her in closer. "And I don't see a mess. I see someone who is grieving. That's not the same thing. That's being human." "When will it start to feel better?" "It doesn't really get better. It just becomes different. The sharp pain starts to soften. The constant ache fades into something that only comes and goes. You find a way to carry it." He kissed the side of her head. "And then one day you notice that you're okay again. You're not who you were before. Loss transforms us. But you'll be okay." "Were you all right in the end?" "It took years, but yes. I learned to coexist with the loss instead of letting it consume me." He gently tilted her face until their eyes connected. "And then you came into my life, and I learned a new lesson. It's possible to lose someone and still find love. Loving someone new doesn't diminish the memory of the person you lost. It simply shows that your heart is expansive enough to hold both." Tears welled in Joyce's eyes. "I love you so much." "I love you too." They embraced as the winter sun poured through the windows, and Joyce's thoughts turned to her father's parting words. "Live love and build something beautiful." She would do it. She would pay tribute to his memory by doing just that. Starting right then, Christmas arrived without fanfare. Joyce and Donald spent the day at his home quietly, just the two of them. William had offered to come up, but Joyce didn't feel up to being around a crowd or celebrating. Donald completely understood. They made a meal together, watched classic films, and spoke of James and Anne, and everyone they had loved and lost. It was melancholic and serene, and it was precisely what Joyce needed. On Christmas morning, Donald handed Joyce a small, silver-wrapped box. "You really didn't need to get me anything. I'm aware, but I wanted to." Inside lay a delicate gold chain with a tiny compass charm. "It's gorgeous. The compass is about finding your way home," Donald said quietly. "No matter how turned around you feel, you can always find your way back, and I'll be right here waiting for you." Joyce fastened it around her neck, the pendant resting perfectly against her collarbone. "Thank you. It's perfect, just like you." "I am not perfect. I'm shattered right now. You are not shattered. You are mending. There's a big difference." Donald reached for her hands. "Joyce, I know this is awful timing. I know you're in mourning, but there's something you have to know. I'm with you, not just temporarily, not just until you're feeling better. I mean forever. I will be yours forever. If you want me." Joyce's breath hitched. "Could he be—" "I'm not proposing," Donald clarified quickly, reading her face. "Not right now. Not while you're in the depths of sorrow, but I want you to know my intentions. When you feel ready, when the moment is right, I plan to ask you to be my wife, and I'm deeply hoping you will say yes." Tears streamed down Joyce's face. "I will. Whenever you ask me, no matter when that is, my answer will be yes. Yes, absolutely yes. Because you are the one for me, Donald. You gave me my life back. You loved me when I didn't have it in me to love myself. You were my rock through the absolute worst of it. You are my person. You are my home." Donald's smile was radiant even through his own tears. "And you are my home." Their kiss was tender and certain, and Joyce felt a palpable shift deep inside her chest. The grief was still there and would be for a long time, but now there was also hope and love and a vision for the future. Her father had urged her to live love and build something beautiful, and she was doing precisely that. Springtime came to Charleston with blooming azaleas and warm winds that smelled of wisteria. As Joyce stood on the battery watching sailboats glide across the harbor, a profound realization washed over her. She was okay. Not the same person she was before. The loss had changed her, carving new depths in her soul, but she was okay. Whole, thriving, not just getting by. 4 months had gone by since she lost her father. 4 months filled with grieving, healing, and discovering how to bear the weight of loss without being pulled under by it. Donald had been by her side through everything, endlessly patient in loving exactly the partner she needed. Now in late April, Joyce was experiencing a feeling she hadn't known in years, excitement for what was to come. She had gone back to her job at Charleston Medical 6 weeks prior, slowly getting back into the rhythm of her shifts. Her colleagues had greeted her with warm support and gentle understanding. The job was still demanding and some days were still utterly heartbreaking. But it felt purposeful again, as if she were truly making a difference. And returning to Donald each night made everything manageable. Home. At what point had his house started to feel like home? It happened somewhere in the space between sorrow and recovery. Sometime between Christmas and spring, Joyce had just let her own apartment go. She moved the last of her belongings to Donald's in March, and it felt so natural that neither of them even discussed it. They simply belonged together. Hey there, beautiful. Joyce spun around to see Donald walking toward her carrying 2 cups of coffee from Callie's. For the past month, they had fallen back into their Thursday morning ritual, grabbing breakfast and chatting before Joyce's shift began. Hey, you're the one who's late. Catherine had phoned with an urgent matter. It seemed the board meeting they believed was next week was in fact happening this afternoon. He passed a coffee over to her. I'm going to be booked solid until 6 or 7. That's no problem. My shift doesn't end until 8 anyway. They took their seats on the bench that had become theirs, the same one Donald had brought her to 2 months before when he told her about Anne. It had transformed into their sanctuary, a space for discussing difficulties, hopes, and everything else in their lives. How are you holding up? Donald inquired. Especially today. It was April 23rd, the 4-month mark since James's passing. I'm okay, Joyce said with sincerity. Sad, but doing okay. I miss him terribly, but I'm now able to think of him without falling apart. That feels like progress. It certainly is. You've made it so far, Joyce. I'm incredibly proud of you. I couldn't have managed without your help. Yes, you could have, he insisted. You're powerful enough to overcome anything. He gave her hand a squeeze. But I'm so glad you didn't have to face it by yourself. They sipped their coffee, their eyes on the harbor. A comfortable silence settled over them, the kind that only comes from a deep mutual understanding. Donald, Joyce began after a moment. I've been giving a lot of thought to what you mentioned at Christmas, about where you stood. His gaze sharpened with curiosity. What about it? I feel ready for whatever is next. I've mourned, I've mended as much as a person ever can from that kind of loss. And I am certain about what I want. She angled her body to face him directly. I want to share a life with you. Marriage, a true partnership, everything we discussed. I'm prepared for all of it. Donald's grin was like dawn breaking across the water. Are you absolutely sure? I never want you to feel pressured. This isn't pressure. It's a choice. There's a world of difference. Joyce reached for his hand. My father urged me to live to love and to create something wonderful. That is what I want to create with you. Joyce Nelson, you cannot possibly know the joy that brings me. So what's the holdup? He chuckled. Have a little patience. I've had this in the works for weeks. You didn't think I would just pop the question on a normal Thursday morning, did you? And why couldn't you? Our Thursday mornings are our special thing. That may be, but I have something much better arranged. Just trust me. Joyce did trust him implicitly. Okay, then I can wait. Not for long, I swear. He placed a soft kiss on her lips. Just grant me 2 more weeks. Can you do that for me? I can do that. Exactly 2 weeks later, Joyce awoke to find Donald's side of the bed empty, with a note left on the pillow. Good morning, my love. A surprise is waiting for you. Catherine will be by to pick you up at 10 a.m. Please wear something casual. Trust me, I love you. A smile touched Joyce's lips as she read the note, a flutter of butterflies taking flight in her stomach. This had to be it. The day had finally come. She showered, styled her natural curls into gentle waves, and slipped into jeans and a breezy white blouse. A pretty yet relaxed outfit. The compass necklace from Donald at Christmas came to rest at her collarbone. She hadn't taken it off once. Catherine pulled up right at 10 o'clock in Donald's SUV, smiling as if she were guarding a precious secret. You're in on this, aren't you? Joyce asked, climbing inside. I may have provided some logistical support, Catherine said, her eyes gleaming. But that's all I'm admitting to. They journeyed through Charleston, past the historic quarter, and out toward the sea. Joyce watched as the city blocks melted into suburbs and then into the coastline. At last, Catherine steered onto a private road that ended at a magnificent house overlooking the water. Where are we, Folly Beach? It's one of Donald's new acquisitions. He closed on it last month. Joyce's breath hitched. Donald had actually purchased a beach house. Catherine led her into a home that felt airy and luminous with vast windows that framed the ocean and then out onto a wide back deck. A perfect private shoreline stretched out in front of them. And walking toward them from the water's edge was Donald himself. He was wearing jeans and a white linen shirt, his sleeves rolled to his elbows and his feet bare. The morning sun caught the silver at his temples, making it shine against his dark hair. He appeared both anxious and overjoyed and utterly perfect. "I think this is my cue to exit," Catherine murmured, giving Joyce's shoulder a gentle squeeze. "You two have fun." She vanished back inside the house, leaving Joyce by herself on the deck. Donald ascended the stairs, a warm smile on his face. Hi yourself. You bought a whole beach house." "I bought us a beach house," he corrected softly, "if you'll have me." He took her hands in his. "Come on, there's something I need to show you." He guided her down onto the sand where a large blanket was spread out, complete with a picnic hamper and a bottle of champagne chilling on ice. "Donald Eley, what on earth have you gotten up to? Please just sit with me." They settled down on the blanket as the ocean wind carried the scent of salt and sunshine. Donald was silent for a beat, simply taking her in, and Joyce could see deep emotions swirling in his blue eyes. 4 months ago, he started, "I witnessed you endure the most painful thing a person can go through. I saw you lose your father, I saw you mourn, and I saw you shatter, and then painstakingly put yourself back together again. And through every moment of it, I found myself falling even more in love with you." Tears began to well in Joyce's eyes. "You are the most resilient person I have ever known, Joyce. The most compassionate, the most loyal. You gave everything for the people you cared about, never asking for anything in return." He shifted his weight, moving to kneel on the blanket. "And somewhere in the middle of all that, I had a revelation. I don't want to go through another day of my life without you. I don't want to wake up without you next to me. I don't want to imagine a future that you aren't in every single way." "Donald, let me finish," he urged, his voice trembling slightly. "When Anne passed, I thought that was it for me. I figured I'd had my one shot at love, that all that was left for me was my ball and just getting by. And then you collapsed in that hospital hallway. And some deep part of me knew you. It recognized a spirit that understood profound loss and weariness and knew what it took to simply keep on going. Anyway, he retrieved a small box from his pocket, opening it to show a beautifully simple, breathtaking diamond ring. "Joyce Nelson, you brought me back from the brink. You taught me that grief isn't the end of the story, that you can pay tribute to those you've lost and still create something new." His eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Will you marry me? Will you allow me to dedicate the rest of my life to loving you, to supporting you, and to building a wonderful life with you?" Joyce was weeping freely now, tears flowing down her cheeks, but she was also smiling. The most brilliant, joyful smile of her entire life. "Yes, yes, Donald, I will marry you. Of course I will marry you." He slid the ring onto her finger. A perfect fit, because he had, of course, found out her size somehow, and then he drew her into his arms. Their kiss was salty from tears in the sea as they laughed and cried all at once. "I love you," Joyce whispered against his mouth. "So much more than I could ever say." "I love you too, always and for all time." They embraced on their own beach, before their own home, with the vast ocean ebbing and flowing beside them. And Joyce recalled her father's final words to her. "Live, love, and build something beautiful." "This is just beautiful. It's everything I ever wanted for you," he murmured. "When did you get this house?" Joyce finally asked. 3 weeks ago. "It was the same day you said you were ready," Donald replied, leaning back to meet her gaze. "I wanted a home for us that was truly ours, not the one I had with Anne, and not your old place either. I wanted something new, a foundation we could build on together." "It's perfect," she whispered. "It's ours." He placed a gentle kiss on her forehead. "Everything I own is ours now, and all that I am belongs to you." "And everything I am is yours too," she replied. They celebrated with champagne and strawberries right there on the beach, planning their future as they strolled along the shoreline, hand in hand. They decided on a small wedding surrounded by only their closest friends and family. William would come up from Florida, and Robert would fly in from Atlanta. Catherine, Sarah, and Keisha would be there, making it an intimate and deeply meaningful celebration. "What about a date?" Joyce wondered aloud. "Anytime you're ready," he answered. "Tomorrow, a month from now, even next year. All I want is to be your husband." "Summer," Joyce decided right then. "Maybe late June, right here on this beach with everyone we love." "Perfect," he said. "That's absolutely perfect." And so they were married on June 20th on the sand in front of their Folly Beach house with 50 people gathered to watch them. Joyce was in a simple, flowing white dress that seemed made for walking barefoot in the sand. Donald, in a linen suit and no tie, looked like he had stepped right out of a dream about the perfect beach wedding. William was Donald's best man, his face glowing with pride. Keisha stood by Joyce's side as her maid of honor, happily crying her way through the whole ceremony. The officiant kept the ceremony short and sweet. Donald and Joyce had prepared their own vows, and Donald went first, his voice firm even as his eyes welled with emotion. Joyce, 7 months ago, I saw you collapse from sheer exhaustion, and a voice inside me whispered, "Pay attention." I am so thankful I did. In just these few months, you have given me more than I ever imagined. You gave me love, laughter, a sense of purpose and hope. You showed me that a broken heart can mend, that life keeps moving forward, and that taking a chance on love is always the right choice. I vow to spend the rest of my days making sure you know how much you mean to me. I vow to champion your dreams, to be your rock in difficult moments, and to share in every single happiness. And I vow to love you with all that I am until I take my very last breath. Then it was Joyce's turn. She took a deep, shaky breath, her gaze fixed on Donald through a blur of tears. Donald, you rescued me. It wasn't about the money or your resources, even though that helped. It was because you saw me, the real me. You recognized my exhaustion and my grief, and you offered support without any judgment. You gave me the space I needed to find myself again. You loved me while I was navigating the deepest loss I've ever known. You proved to me that I could get through anything as long as I had someone by my side. Her voice trembled. I promise to love you with that same patience and tenderness you've always given me. I promise to be your true partner in all things. And I promise to cherish Anne's memory just as I do my parents. Because the ones we've loved and lost are a part of what shaped us. I promise that every day we will build a beautiful life together. Then by the power vested in me, the officiant declared with a wide smile, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Donald, you may kiss your bride. Donald wrapped Joyce in his arms, kissing her passionately as 50 people erupted in cheers and the waves crashed gently on the shore beside them. They were Mr. and Mrs. Eley, husband and wife partners for life. The reception that followed was relaxed and filled with joy, with string lights twinkling between the palm trees. A local jazz band set the mood, and the food was catered by Joyce's favorite restaurants in Charleston. There was dancing right on the sand. As dusk settled, William raised his glass for a toast. My son has been through an unimaginable ordeal, he began. He lost the love of his life, he closed himself off from everyone, and he forgot what it meant to live. And then this incredible woman collapsed in a hospital corridor, and in her, Donald saw a reflection of himself. It was like two shattered souls finding their other half. I honestly can't say who rescued who, but one thing is certain, they saved each other. And isn't that what marriage is all about? Two people coming together to become whole again. To Donald and Joyce, a chorus of "To Donald and Joyce" filled the air. Then Robert stood up to give his own toast. My sister has always been our rock, he said. She's always the one looking after everybody else, and she never lets anyone look after her. That is until Donald came along. He saw how worn out she was, and he didn't turn away. He offered her a hand and simply refused to be turned down. He gave her love right when she needed it the most. His voice cracked with emotion. Dad would be so incredibly proud. Mom, too. They would have adored Donald. They would be overjoyed that Joyce found a man who sees her for the amazing person she is, just like they always did. To my sister and to her husband. The toast was met with more cheers, more happy tears, and more joy than Joyce ever thought her heart could contain. Later that evening, while they were dancing beneath the stars, Donald whispered, I'm so happy. I never knew it was possible to feel this happy. Happier than I have any right to be. You deserve every good thing in this world, Donald Eley. And so do you, Mrs. Eley. Mrs. Eley. Joyce adored the way that sounded. They kept dancing until the band finished their last song, until the final guest had departed, and until they were the only two people left on their beach, wrapped in a blanket of stars. This is only the start, Donald murmured, pulling Joyce in tightly. The start of everything. The start of us, she echoed to Sir. The start of us. A year to the day, Joyce opened her eyes to the morning sun pouring through the windows of their Folly Beach home, with Donald's arms securely around her waist. They had now been husband and wife for a full year, and it had been the most wonderful year of Joyce's life. She was still working at Charleston Medical Center and had recently started teaching part-time helping new nurses understand the importance of balanced self-care and not giving every last piece of yourself to the job. Donald, for his part, had reduced his hours at Eley Medical Technologies. He had promoted Thomas Hayes to president, which allowed him to concentrate on strategy and innovation rather than the daily grind. Together, they had discovered a perfect equilibrium. They had careers that were meaningful but didn't take over their lives, leaving them with time for one another and for happiness. Joyce gently placed a hand on her stomach where a new life had just begun to form. She had done the test the day before. 3 positive results were sitting on the bathroom counter. She hadn't broken the news to Donald yet, wanting to wait for just the right time. Morning, beautiful. Donald's drowsy voice was a low rumble against her neck. What's on your mind? Oh, the future, she said. Good things, he asked. The very best things. She shifted to face him in his embrace. Donald, there's something I have to tell you. His focus sharpened instantly, a flash of worry in his eyes. Is everything all right? Everything is perfect, she assured him. It's more than perfect. She guided his hand and laid it over her stomach, which was still flat. We're going to have a baby. Donald froze for a second, then his expression transformed into one of such profound joy that it stole Joyce's breath. Are we really? Are you? We're having a baby, he stammered. We're having a baby. He kissed her with a desperate happiness, a mix of laughter and tears escaping him all at once. Oh, I love you. God, Joyce, I love you more than words can say. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for this, for all of it. Thank you for saving my life. We saved each other, she reminded him gently. Remember, they certainly did. As the dawn light crept into the room, they lay tangled in each other's arms, dreaming aloud about baby rooms, debating names, and whispering about the wonderful new chapter that was just beginning. Joyce's mind drifted back to who she was just 18 months prior, a woman utterly spent without a shred of hope, buckling under the immense pressure she shouldered all by herself. The person she was back then could never have imagined a future like this. Yet here she was, all because she had crumpled to the floor of a hospital corridor, catching the eye of a kind widowed billionaire. It was because Donald had extended his help, no questions asked, and because they both found the courage to take another chance. A chance to open their hearts to love once more and to construct a new life from the remnants of their sorrow. Any thoughts on a name for the baby? Donald murmured. If we have a boy, it has to be James, Joyce replied without hesitation. James William Eley for both of our fathers. I think they would have really liked that, being honored side by side. They'd adore it, he agreed, placing a soft kiss on her temple. And for a girl, Patricia Ann, for both our moms. Perfect. It was absolutely perfect. They remained nestled together, mapping out the years ahead, a life that would be filled with a child, with endless laughter, with deep love, and with all the wonderfully simple moments that truly matter. Beyond their window, the waves crested and fell with a steady rhythm. Inside, Joyce and Donald simply held one another, amazed at the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. They had traveled from a world of sorrow and fatigue to one of love and optimism, from hitting rock bottom to rising again, from painful conclusions to beautiful new starts. This was the life her father had wished for her. It was the future both her parents had envisioned, a life overflowing with affection, a partner who understood every part of her, and a happiness so profound it redeemed all the difficult years she had endured. Joyce's fingers found the compass pendant resting against her skin, the gift Donald had given her on their first Christmas together. She was finally home. Home wasn't a place, but a feeling right here, wrapped in Donald's embrace, creating a new and wonderful life with him. Everything was exactly as it should be. We appreciate you staying with this story until the very end. If you found yourself captivated by this tale, we know you're going to be thrilled with what's coming up next. The next one is even wilder and more fascinating than you can possibly imagine. Don't miss out. Go ahead and click the image that's appearing on your screen to jump right into it.